Everybody's wrong about roasting chicken, mostly me. Problem is, you say breast meat 165, dark meat 175. That dark meat is not even close to being properly cooked at that temperature. Tendons, connective tissue, they have not dissolved. So hold on to your hats. The proper temperature for dark meat on chicken or turkey is not 175, it's not 185, it's not 195, it is 205. After 45 years, I finally figured out how to roast the chicken. Okay, we got a whole chicken. So the problem with a whole chicken is if you just throw this in the oven, the heat doesn't really get to all parts of the leg. So you have to disconnect the parts and separate them. So the dark meat's going to get a lot of attention from the oven. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to get this up to almost 200 while the breast goes to 165. So the first thing we'll do is cut the skin a little and we'll pull back this joint. There's the bone right there. The wings, you want to make an incision about there so you can see the joint. So you're just going through the joint. You're not actually cutting through bone. Okay, so now we have the backbone, which I'm going to take out. And now we just have the breast, the whole breast. And we're going to press it down. So this is essentially spatchcocking the bird. Okay, so we'll put the breast there, put one of the legs here, other legs here, and then the two wings. I'm going to also trim off the tips because they tend to burn. Okay, you don't actually have to flatten the breast. The problem is sometimes it's unstable or rocks. If you take out the backbone and flatten it, it's going to stay put, which is really great. And also, once it comes out of the oven, it's easier to carve if you have the backbone out. Back in the 1980s, I started telling people to wet brine, and that works. The thing I don't like about wet brining is it's a mess. You got to find a big container. You got to find room in a refrigerator or on your porch in the winter. The second thing is wet brining can actually make the meat too wet. I don't like that wet taste in meat. I like some chew to it. So dry brining is easier to do, and I like the texture better. It has a little bit more texture to it. Now we're going to salt it with some salt and pepper. This is like instant dry brining. This is only going to be an hour. We found that actually did help. The salt will penetrate. It will help the meat remain juicy even during cooking. Salted, peppered, spatchcocked, separated. So we're going to let this sit for an hour. It's been an hour. Now, what you can see is a little bit of moisture. That's the salt attracts moisture that comes out. And now we're going to oil it. Now, I like to oil it, and then I use za'atar or other herb mixture on top of this. You can do that or not, depends. The oil is going to help get you a really brown skin. Of course, a really hot oven is going to do that too. Okay. 425 oven for 50 to 55 minutes. I've actually roasted this in 30, 35 minutes in even a hotter oven, but let's take 425. And the rack is in the top third of the oven. Believe it or not, it's a little like a magic trick. The breast got to 165, I'll show you, and these legs got up to be at 200 degrees. Depending on the size of the breast and the size of the legs, you might get to 195. Ideally, you want 200 to 205 if you can. That's the temperature at which you're really going to get fabulous results. First question is, have we overcooked the breast meat, right? Juicy. Very good. So the breast meat is not overcooked. So here's the thigh. Like you can see all of this meat is really nicely cooked. Let's take a look at this. So I'm just going to carve down. Now look at that. Normally when you cook to 175, the meat just doesn't come off like that. I could use a butter knife to take this off. All of this is beautifully cooked. So you can see the meat is done. There's no gnarly undercooked parts. All of this meat is delicious. The other thing you need to know is it's almost impossible to overcook dark meat. White meat, breast meat, yes. Dark meat, I've cooked sometimes dark meat for an hour and a half, and it's still quite good. So you're not going to have to worry about drying out dark meat when you cook it like this. So it's still incredibly juicy. If you buy rotisserie chicken, they cook it so the breast meat's juicy. But if you get into the leg, into the thigh, it's pink. The meat is not fully cooked. And sometimes the leg should move really easily, right? I mean, you should have, this should be very flexible. Very often a rotisserie chicken, this is not flexible, which means it's not properly cooked. So they go for the breast meat, thinking that you're probably not going to eat the dark meat. So the next time you roast a chicken, cut the parts off, cut the legs off, cut the wings off. You can leave the breast whole or spatchcock it and flatten it. There's going to be a 30-degree or 40-degree difference between the two, just because the breast is bigger, it's slower to heat up, and the dark meat is smaller and will get up to a higher temperature in the same amount of time. This technique is so much better than what every cookbook tells you. I cannot tell you how great this is.